On the phone with me right now, I have Mary Lou Jacobs. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Mary, you're calling from Southern California.
Yes,
And
I am.
you've been involved with a receivership case in the Los Angeles, Southern California area. That basically, can you take us from the start, how that all kind of began, and basically kind of summarize how we ended up where you're at now? Okay.
Okay. I'm not sure why they chose my property, except that that's a corner. It was a corner lot, and there was a auto shop that was out of zoning compliance. They zoned it for commercial. It was a commercial property for 55 years. And then Gloria Molina, who was a supervisor, decided to turn it into a residential zone. So we had a grandfather permission to keep it there, but the 10 years were over, and then he was supposed to either pay extra money to pay for noncompliance or leave. And he didn't do either one. But for 8 years, there was really nothing said to him to leave. I mean, 8 years, it was there for almost, maybe 5 years. They didn't do anything to force him out.
When did this start again?
I think it was partly the zoning issue.
But
because
I mean,
it was.
I'm sorry, but what year, month and year, if you remember?
Well, we bought the property in the year 2000. It was good till 2010. And then it was still 2015, and he was still there. So he was out of compliance for zoning for over 5 years. Mm-hmm. But they didn't really complain about the zoning issue to the extent where we were being harassed until I started writing. When I knew they wanted him out, though. So I thought, well, if he has to leave, then I'm going to start making this into a residence. So I used a third of the car garage where they did the repairs, which had been used as an office, and turned it into a studio apartment. And my husband and his brother didn't get permits, but we did everything to code, but we didn't get permits because they said, oh, you don't need them, don't worry about it, we're just remediating termite damage. Well, that was a big mistake. So I spent over $40,000 of my teacher's retirement fund to turn a part of a commercial property into a residential place. And I just thought I was obeying the zoning issues because they said it's supposed to be commercial. It's not supposed to be commercial anymore. And I thought we could redo the office and make it into a place to live. And, I had all these highfalutin ideas of changing, converting commercial to, what do you call it, to residential. And as it turned out, they just bulldozed it all and charged us $70,000 to bulldoze the house the studio that was 5 years old and housing somebody, and bulldoze the offices. Now, on the other hand, it was already termite ridden. It was old, and so we had empty land. There was one house left. There was five pieces of property, 5 buildings. There was one house left that I had been living in for 10 years, and there was really nothing. It was not red tagged. It was, they found some things wrong with it. But that was after the LA County Sheriff's Department took the sink off the wall. And I mean, they did their damage before the inspection. So then there were problems. And that's what I couldn't believe. There was really nothing wrong with parking cars in the garage of C&R Auto Shop. And the police came and used a battering ram and it broke all the windows. And then they said, you're not in compliance because you've got cars that are not drivable on your property. And yet the police from the LA County Sheriff's Department or whoever decided to break the windows first about a week before they did the inspection in 2015. Jeez. So I don't know if it was a setup, but it sure looks like one. And they used the excuse that I had gangs in my house, gang members. Well, the gang members had been living there for 5 years. We never had drive-by shooting until I put a sign on my property that said Bernie's Homies, because I thought maybe I could use the office to, get the Bernie Sanders campaign to give me money for his office, because I had run an office before for political campaigns. And over the word homies, I said Bernie's homies. I had a Star of David, and on the day of the Super Tuesday, I think it was March 30th, 2015. At 2 a.m, 7 shots came right on the Star of David, right by my window, and then they shot the patio door above. There was a girl that used to sleep in front of the patio door. Thank God she wasn't killed. They shot the car windows and my window. And then, so I called the police, obviously, and they said, somebody doesn't like Bernie Sanders. They didn't say this was gang related. They just said somebody doesn't like Bernie Sanders, because they were shooting at the sign. And every time, and I was working as a volunteer, and every time there was I was doing phone banking, that afternoon there would be shooting. Then there was another, not a Super Tuesday, but Super Saturday, where there was a lot of people from the South where they shot that day. And so it was correlated to voting. So I think some crazy people from the Hillary campaign were trying to stop me. Because when I turned to say Hillary's homies, nobody shot for 2 weeks. Because when he gave up, and he lost. I changed the whole thing that turned it pink and white, and I said, Hillary's homies, and a lady came by and said, are you with her? And I said, yeah. And it was creepy. It was like she was watching me. And there was not one shot. And yet we had been going through being shot at least once or twice a week. So the police, though, they wanted to see this not as, anti-Semitism, because they were shooting at the Star of David, not as political, vendettas, but as a gang issue. And I'm like, this is not about the gangs. The only gang is the people that, maybe don't like Mexican people, because there's Mexican people living here. Because I heard after they were shooting, I heard them say, "Wee, woo, woo, woo." I'm a white person. Mexican gangsters don't say "woo, woo, woo, woo" after they do a drive-by shooting. I'm sorry, it was white people that did it, and yet, because of the gang injunctions and all the money that the county and the state of California gives to get rid of gangs, they overblew this gangster issue. And I think they were picking on us, and did several raids where they destroyed property and found nothing, because, hey, otherwise they have to go get real gang bangers. Yes, these guys were in a gang when they were in their high school years, but they were working, or they were just out of prison. They were, once you're a gang member, it's hard to get a job. And so I was helping them have a place to live. Yeah. 3 of them were students of mine. I had been a substitute teacher, and they had been my students. So it was more of a family thing. It wasn't because I was, condoning gangster life. I was picking up the pieces of the homeless situation in L.A. There's nowhere for anybody to live. There was a man that was living on a park bench, and we let him in. He had mental illness. He was sleeping on our couch. There was another woman that was mentally ill. She was in our, like a big closet. There was a whole family. 3 children and a man and his wife, and they were living in what used to be my kitchen when I was remodeling it. And these people had been living in their car before that. By living in this kitchen that was remodeled, it was no longer a kitchen. They had a place for their kids. They had Wi-Fi. They had electricity. They had water. They had, a place to take a shower. But then they ended up being taken away by the Department of Children and Family Services. And even the neighbors, the house that I lived in, they took her children away. It was like, it wasn't enough to steal my property. They had to steal my renters' children. And they took this little boy from this really good single mom who has her grandmother and her father and her uncle, all helping to take care of this little boy. And the father was in prison, I guess. But, he was separated from his mother for over 3 months over lies. Like I told you, the 3 children that were there, they were separated. They kept trying to take my husband and put him in a nursing home, even though I was taking care of him. And they took my dogs.
Who was trying to put your husband into a nursing home?
The Department of agents, what do you call it? It's called the Department of not elder abuse, adult protective services.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
how did?
And I said I would. You know,
Go ahead.
well, I'm just saying I was afraid for them to take him away, and they kept saying you have to leave. You know what? I guess it was the 18th of May or something. That they kept on sending me notices to fix this or that. But when I tried to fix anything, they said, "Well, you can't get a permit to do this unless you give us an architectural plan for the entire property." The property, it would be at least $5,000 just to get architectural plans, let alone, permits for every single thing that I thought I might do. Right. And so I was at a standstill.
So you weren't able to get the architectural plans?
No. I tried to get some. No, I couldn't do it. I didn't have the money.
Right. So what happened then?
Well, I was supposed to go to a meeting where they were going to throw the book at me and tell me about the problem with the electricity in the house where I was living at and the plumbing.
A meeting with whom?
A meeting with the it's the building and safety.
Okay.
Code violation people in Alhambra.
With the city or Canning? Yeah. Okay. With the city.
In LA County. County. Yeah. Okay. And there were the same people that were doing the inspections that were trying to say get this done. Right. And I went to them and I knew that I had to fix the problems. I'm not saying that our house is not an eyesore.
Right.
But I had very little control over what happened after they forced C&L Auto Shop to leave. After it was gone, I had no income. I was getting $1,000 a month to keep my makeshift homeless shelter going. That's all I was living on besides the $700 from the house, a 2-bedroom house. I was barely getting any rent. But, I thought I was Mother Teresa, I guess, and that was my mistake. I was brought up as a Catholic, and I just didn't have the heart to throw people in the street.
Right.
And instead of forcing them to give money, which I didn't have, my husband and I would say, well, just do work instead. Like maybe you could do this, tear this thing down. There's a little bit of problem with the stucco, or do this. And because they weren't condoned with a contractor who actually wanted to charge us $250,000 for the whole thing to be fixed, we couldn't do it. And we couldn't get a loan because there were liens on the property from the co-owner. It was a conundrum. I mean, there was nowhere to go. And I can see if we had a receiver that was legitimate and charged, a little percentage over and above what it costs to do the remediation, we hopefully would have been able to move back there in a house that was code compliant, and we would not be forced out for 2 years. The people that I was helping would be living on park benches and living in their car again. The people that were in the house, they were getting evicted because I realized, that was the only place I'd go. If they demolished the house where I was living, which was built in 1922, I could go to the house that was built in 1967 and didn't have termite problems, or, it wasn't yellow, it wasn't red tag.
Right.
But after the police came and tore away some of the plumbing and everything, it was yellow tagged. But those people were living there for a good 6 months. I could have been living there instead. But the eviction that I had started was neglected to be by the court, I guess. And instead, they gave my equity money, $10,000, to the renters there to leave. And so they made out. They got $10,000 for leaving. So they didn't go through the eviction court. But I had already started eviction. So that was $10,000 they didn't have to spend.
Wow. So, excuse me. So, after all of this started taking place, action was filed in court in June 18th of 2018, I believe it was, and they started motions after motions of taking you to court. They assigned the receiver, who was Mark Adams from California Receivership Group. And that's when things really escalated, especially with costs, correct?
Well, yes, I tried to get an attorney, because I knew that I was being sued, so I called up ACLU, I called up the Institute of Justice, I called up Habitat for Humanity, and I did an email. I did a like Save Our Ship on the internet saying, please, there's going to be an inspection in another month. Would you please help me fix this property so after the inspection I won't need the receiver? Because there was a time gap between when I was getting sued and when we would have to go to court and actually get the receiver.
Right.
So before the receiver was appointed officially by court, I found a man by the name of David Cohen, who was had a Shalom construction company, who was willing to fix the property despite the liens, despite the black cloud,
right?
To see if he could fix it before the inspection. And he did about 40% of the work. He cleared out all the debris that was in the CNR auto shop, so it was no longer an eyesore. He literally paid people with cash to demolish one CNR auto part of the carport that was not permitted from, I don't know, before we even bought the place. It was an unpermitted carport. In fact, they bring up 40-year-old permit issues to throw the book at you. I mean, we bought the place and we had the unpermitted carport. Nobody did a damn thing over that carport. And then all of a sudden it was like a mortal sin that you have a carport that wasn't permitted. So he demolished that. He demolished part of the unpermitted bathroom that my husband put in because he was a plumber and obstinate. He took that apart. He took apart and he cleaned it. And we were hoping that he could be the receiver.
Right.
And I even deeded the property to him in the exchange that I could go back and live in the house that he had fixed then, because I knew from people telling me that I was going to lose everything. And so I thought, well, I'd rather lose title and have a place to live for the rest of my life. But that didn't happen.
So,
instead, they demolished.
They demolished the home, right? So let me ask you, Mr. Cohen, he was willing to do the work as the receiver. Why didn't the court appoint him?
I guess it was already a done deal without my realizing that there was already, the guy's name was in the legal papers when I was getting sued. They had a plan for him to help them. I don't know why he wasn't, because he was a construction company, and and by giving it to his nonprofit organization, because he was a Refuge Foundation, and he already had homeless shelters, so that's why I chose him. I thought if I give it to a man who's already running a homeless shelter, he can do this legitimately, use his, Shalom, buy it to rehab the property so that it will just go on, except with code remediation.
Yeah,
but
so
they didn't see that.
But what I don't
they didn't want to do it.
Did you present him to court? Did you tell him, hey, this is... I see. And another thing...
I came with him. He came there, and the judge did give him permission to fix it, but only without having a receiver. And so this was in December. It was about the fourth or fifth case. Finally, the judge said, okay, Shalom can fix it, but the receiver has to have his hands in it. And the receiver would not give him access to the property. And there was a lot of delay.
So the judge told Shalom Construction that they could, in fact, work with the receiver in order to fix your home, but the receiver would not give Shalom Construction access to your home to, in fact, do the repairs, which caused you probably exorbitant amount of fees in order to use whom Mark Adams, the receiver, wanted you to use, rather than your own person, right?
If I made a phone call to complain to him, it cost $400. I mean, to
complain to who?
To the receivership.
So
I
if
would
you
call
called the receiver, he would charge you how much again?
Well, it was about $120. But then after they discussed the phone call. That was another $450 per hour to discuss the phone call I made. If I sent an email, I would see in the the paperwork. I guess you could call it a paper dump. They would say discussing Mary Jacobs' email, and between the $110 or $130 per hour for secretaries and $450 an hour for him, for Mark Adams, and $250 for Sheila Vossoff and other people that I didn't even know, his other cohorts. They would have a big discussion over my email. It would cost $700 to just do an email. It cost $20 for them to make a phone call to get the email with somebody. I realized too late that communicating with the receiver, who was, I thought, supposed to be cooperating with me to get the property fixed as soon as possible, it was just costing me an arm and a leg and a head and the feet too. I mean, it was just expensive to even complain about not being able to get into the property for, like I wanted to get my things.
Right.
I wasn't able to get my things until 3 days before they demolished it in May. So I lived without, my clothes, my kitchen appliances, my artwork was destroyed. They had an antique sign that they took. I don't know what happened to any of that stuff. It just disappeared.
What did you do to make people so angry that they would literally attack your personal property like this? I don't understand.
They didn't attack. They disappeared it. To them, it was just in the way before they demolished the office. But all of my things were in the office, and I tried to gain access to it. And there was always an excuse, oh no, they're busy working, we're doing this and that. They didn't touch. They just left the whole place the way that Mr. Cohen left it, back in October of 2015. They left it like that for a year and a half, did nothing. But I couldn't gain access to my own stuff to try to get some of it out. They just didn't give. Plus, there was a problem because I was forced to be living in transitional housing because they kicked my husband and me out of there. So we had nowhere to go. And so
from what I understand,
we were paying
you guys were in in a car for a bit as well, especially
I was
during
in a car
this
after my
COVID.
husband died. I was living in my car, not my car, but a friend's car.
Right.
Then I just moved into a tent, and then I found an Airbnb, and I'm cleaning toilets to pay part of my rent. I have some money from Social Security, but it's insane that I was literally a landlady with income, living for free 2-3 years ago. And now I'm a bag lady, and I can fit all of my belongings that are left after being homeless in 3 or 4 bags.
Retired from school district, you said, too?
Right, LA County, LA City, LA Unified School District for, I guess, altogether about 20 years, yeah. I was a substitute teacher. I didn't have that much money, but but to lose every penny of your equity.
Right.
Hard.
Absolutely. So I got a little ahead of the story. So backing up a bit, so they filed the court case. Marka Adams went through with demolishing the property that was on the land, the buildings and what have you. And then what happened? Where did it go from there?
She found a secret buyer. They said that they were going to be listing it. And it was not multiple listed or whatever. If you went to look if it was listed or not, it wasn't listed. You had to go through a lot of hoops to find the property listed. So he probably sold it to one of his friends because we couldn't find it, when we Googled it until we did a lot of more research. And it was sold through like a real estate agent who got $550,000, which was a really good price. I was amazing with that much.
Wow.
Because when I tried selling it before that without having everything demolished and everything, the most I could get was $300,000 for the whole property as is. Had I known then, though, that would have been a deal, because at least I get something, I would have sold it. But we bought it for $250,000 in the year 2000. I didn't think that, a profit of only $50,000 after 20 years was enough. Yeah. But now I'm getting nothing instead.
So now they've taken it all, demolished the property, and then they rebuilt buildings or what have you, and then sold it.
They didn't rebuild anything.
Oh, no, so they just sold the land.
Remaining house, the land and the house and the 2-bedroom and two-car garage, and nice, but they didn't do it. They didn't do anything to fix that one. And I think, that's to make it easy for them for any possible, future owner to just demolish that without wasting the money to fix it. Because, it makes sense not to fix it because you don't know the intention of the next buyer. If they want to put an apartment there.
Yeah, but if he's a receiver, though, his intent should not be to figure out how to resell your property. It should be how to figure out how to get your property up to code and back to your control. If you look at California law, I'm sure you've been through this, and I'm speaking to people who are listening, really. If you've looked at California law, you'll see that a receiver can be anybody that the judge wishes to appoint, although it cannot be somebody who the judge knows or that even the attorneys know. But it can be somebody that the plaintiff or the defendant knows, which, like Mary Jacobs here, like she was saying with this gentleman, Mr. Cohen, she had every right under the law to have the court appoint him to get the job done, so she could get back to her home. So now you've come this far through the court system, and you've lost your husband in the process. You were in a vehicle, living in a car. Now you're in a tent. It's just destroyed.
No, I'm not in a tent. I'm living in the Airbnb with 4 other women in a bedroom. Gotcha. I pay $600 a month, and part of the money is going to, I have to work off part of it so I can afford to live here.
Gotcha. But you went through that situation, though. You went through the homelessness, the car, the tent living, that difficult lifestyle, and you're getting yourself back on your feet after the city or county put you through this, and then you get some information. I'm sorry.
They create homeless. They create homeless people, and yet they get voted in. Like that Proposition H and Measure H. We're supposed to give $1.2 billion to stop homelessness, and I used to go. I can't believe that instead of fixing the property and giving it back to us with the money that they have accumulated to help homeless issues, because they knew I was helping homeless people, they make me homeless and all the people I was helping homeless.
Yeah,
it's insane.
It is, because the repairs, the cost of the repairs themselves, if a homeowner can't afford them, they could definitely be able to take a loan against the house, and then of course you've got those monthly payments that the homeowner needs to take care of. But at least the home is back in shape and back in order and back in the homeowner's hands where it should be. To me, it looks like Mr. Mark Adams has started as a nice little profiteering off of Americans' hardship, especially people who's purchased their homes and they're pretty much paid for outright, right? I mean,
there's a lot of equity to scoop. The whole house was paid for. We paid for it in cash, so it was like 100% equity, and there were code violations, but because of liens that the family put on, which were kind of bogus liens, we couldn't really take a loan against the equity to fix the property, and the family didn't want to do it. And I have a co-owner who had a lien that was eventually called illegal. It was not honored, but because there were 2 liens on the property, it was hard to get a loan from anybody to pay for the repairs, and the repairs had to be done. Yeah. And as I said, they wouldn't help us with that.
So, Mr.
Cohen said to there was a meeting in January of 2019, and he said that he would fix everything and just leave one wall of my house standing so it would be considered a remodel. So there was, Mr. Cohen tried to help me. They said, no, it has to be demolished completely, because they had it in their head that they wanted just to sell the land. They didn't want me to go live back there again. And and that's when we found out about the $1,000 a day, security guards that soaked up $67,000 of my equity for 2 months worth of 2 armed guards watching a property that the county says has to be demolished. That to me is like, he took my money and wasted it on armed guards that had the toilet.
Why were armed guards appointed to the property? What was so important that needed to be patrolled like that?
He said there were squatters there. The homeless people that I had been helping apparently got back in and were living somewhere. Now, there's people squatting all over the city, but I don't think that they need to waste, $67,000 for 2 months worth of armed guards. There were police there all the time, sheriff's department. There was across the street from a school. There was school police. They could have handled it. Our tax money was going to pay for it, but there was no take in it for the security man who was getting $250 an hour to drive from Santa Monica to my property to make sure that the 2 armed guards were doing a good job. His name was Lou Laurenti. And
can you say again? What was that? His
Lou,
name?
Lou, L-O-U, Laurenti, Laurenti. He gets as much money as the attorney, Sheila Vossogh, Vossogh, to do all the legwork for this house. Sheila I like her. She's a nice lady. Okay, she kept saying like, "Oh, I'll listen to you. But it was costing me money when she was listening to me. Okay, I didn't realize that her being my friend of sorts was costing me $250 an hour, and Mr. Lou Laurenti was getting paid to oversee all this security guard stuff for a property that wasn't worth that much money and was going to get demolished anyway. It was just a way to pad the bill. And the judge didn't even get consulted on this. Gotcha. At the meeting where in January, when Mr. This was in an office for the county, and Mr. The LA County Council, Dusan Pavlovich was there. The building and safety people were there. The code violation people were there. Obviously, Mark was there. Mark Adams and Sheila and I and my husband and Rodika, my nephew, who owns the property with me, a third of it, and Mr. Cohen, and they all were together at one point to discuss how to go about, fixing this property. And they wouldn't after Mr. Cohen received permission from the court to do the work. That's when they said it all has to be demolished. You can't leave one thing left. And so Mr. Cohen could not make good on his promise to let me live somewhere. And they wouldn't let us touch the house that was still standing because there were people there. But then eventually they paid $10,000 to move those people out, but wouldn't let me go back there and my husband go there. No, we had to be paying $1,000 a month for transitional housing to live with people who just got out of jail and mentally ill people that were, putting our dogs away and beating me up. It was, he said he was going to ask the judge to get a security guard. He never asked the judge; he just did it. And when the judge found out that the bill was, almost $70,000 plus $30,000 for Lou Laurenti for his being a security czar or whatever, $100,000 for watching a place that was going to get demolished. And the judge said, "Oh no, we can't do this." He changed it. He said reduce it to 1 guard, and then he eventually reduced it to have a video camera. He didn't. But had Mark been smart, he would have done a video surveillance from the very beginning. He just wanted to pay the bill and give Lou Laurenti a big salary.
So, what was the total cost that Mark Adams from CRG is claiming with his security and all the work that he's alleged to have done? What is the total amount that he's claiming owed?
Right now, if all the fees are paid for the county and for the real estate and everything, it's $850,000 for a
Holy
property sold for
smoly!
$550. Yeah,
Wait a minute.
yeah.
He's charged
He
you.
charged $300,000 over and above the $550,000 take from the sale of the property, and the judge hasn't approved it yet. That's why there's an evidentiary hearing in October.
To find out why this expense is? Is that what the evidentiary
Right.
hearing is about? Wow. So
Right.
that's a big deal with your case, because typically judges just let this guy's bills come through and they just seem to sign off on them, and forcing the homeowners to lose everything. So this judge, and this is a county judge?
Yeah. I don't think he wants to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but there's some new ruling that I wish I could remember I don't remember the name of it, but Mark Adams said, no, now you can still owe fees afterward. I don't think the extra fees were supposed to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that doesn't stop Mark Adams from trying.
Right,
and the judge doesn't want to give it to him, I can tell. That's why he didn't yet. On the other hand, we're supposed to be happy about losing everything. I mean, it's sort of like a red herring. Well, tell them they owe $850,000, then be thankful that they don't owe money for the joy of having their house sold.
Right.
And it wouldn't even be me; it would be Mr. Cohen, the Good Samaritan, who fixed the property, spent over $40,000 doing what he could to save me from being homeless, and then he would, on top of that, be liable because the house is sort of in his name for the extra $300,000.
Wow. So, do you have an attorney right now?
I'm it. If I couldn't afford fixing my plumbing, how could I afford an attorney? And I told you, I tried getting pro bono. I went to Beth Dedick. I went to, LA, all these different places. The only people those people help are renters that are getting evicted, not homeowners that are getting kicked out of their own house, because they see that I own property and they think, oh, she's rich, she owns a property. So they won't help you.
So do you think there's also a conspiracy going on between these county or city appointed attorneys, and then the judges, the health and safety? Do you think that there's some things that need to be addressed, probably legislatively, in California to fix this, what seems to be an obvious loophole in the law, allowing people to go after other people's land and property?
Yeah, well, honestly, the receivership idea, I was reading up on it. It's been going on for many, many centuries. I mean, it's normal to take over property if people can't do it themselves. Like, there's actually people that hire them, but they're not supposed to be taking, 10 times over the cost of fixing something. Right. They're supposed to be taking a portion. Like if you sell your real estate to somebody, they get the commission. If to me, I'm say he got a commission of even 40%. That's better than getting 10 times over the cost of fixing the property. Right. But because he's a lawyer and he can charge that much, and he has friends that security guards that used to be his bodyguards that need to get $250 an hour, and they have to hire all these extra. I don't know. I never heard of the clerical staff being paid $110 an hour. Right. And I mean, it costs $50 for a $20 $20 parking ticket to be noted. And then how many times was that Federal Express to 20 people? I mean, they put a lot of people on their mailing list, and then they charge for each mailing, and it just adds up and adds up. So if they could cut the fat, but didn't say, look, you can get a certain percentage over and above the cost of remediating code violations, and then do a time thing. Because when he gets that money in his hands, it's a 15% interest rate. So the longer it takes for him to drag it on, the more interest money these loan sharks can get. So there should be a time limit. If they're going to demolish a house, just do it. Get it over with. And let us go move into the house that's left. But that didn't happen.
And you've also been in contact with others who were facing this same, I guess you could say, attack by the local city and county councils there. And without saying
different counties.
Yeah, without mentioning too many names, though, well, we can mention Jerry, of course. You're in touch with him, and you guys share information about what's going on because you guys have a similar situation. But then there's also another woman that we know of out there, an elderly woman who's also been going through something of the same nature with Mark. It seems to be like this guy, this is all he's really targeting is these homes with people who've paid everything off so that he can quickly come in and make, I was told like a $500,000 to $700,000 fee every time.
Right, but it's not quickly. It takes a few years. The whole point of it is to get a big receivership, I guess it's a bunch of money for 15%. And he keeps that money, and I think he uses the interest on it to pay what little work he does to fix it, and then that money is his. But the lady, I went to see her house, and she didn't have games in her house. She had a lawn that was turned brown. I mean, come on, in Orange County, but it's a nice corner lot, and to me, it's elderly. She's 79 years old. She can't afford a lawyer. She got a free lawyer, which is, in a way, I'm happy I have my lawyer, who is me, because I can say what I want. Her hands are tied sometimes because she has a lawyer. Yeah. So sometimes being your own lawyer in a case where you're losing everything, why spend the money on the lawyer?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like even a lawyer might have been able to do very much for you anyways, because these guys kind of had their own thing and were going after you. They had the judge. They had, I don't want to say they had the judge because the judge is supposed to be impartial. And
I don't think the judge, honestly, this judge I like. And maybe he's a really good actor, but I could see him cringe when he would look at Mark lying. And he would actually say, you're lying to me. He would say to Mark Adams, in fact, this judge, do you mind if I tell you his name?
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah, no, please do.
Okay, William Fahey, Honorable Judge William Fahey, and I honestly believe that he doesn't like what's going on at all, because when he saw $218,000 for receivership fees, it was before that it was more like $250,000 or something. He actually had the audit done because I had no lawyer, and he had this audit done by the LA County Council to go over the paperwork, and they found that there was a $30,000 overpayment that was illegal for the legal fees. Okay, now if somebody who was supposed to be my enemy could find $30,000 discrepancy between what should be charged and what shouldn't, it could really be more than $30,000. And the judge said, so you've been charging over the state legal limit per hour, and have any other judges caught it? And Mark said no. And so that and then the judge was the one who said, you can't, both of you come to every hearing, because every hearing they were getting $700 an hour.
So you said that you said that Mark told the judge that no other judge has caught him overcharging in fees?
Right, and so I was wondering why he wasn't fired on the spot.
But he has been caught, and you should bring that to your next hearing, that evidence as well. I'll be sure to send that in the email to you, because he's actually been caught overcharging before, and the judge has admonished him over it. And it was a case in which Wells Fargo was also a part of the case, and he actually had to pay fees back for his overcharging. So you should take this information in and say, Your Honor, he lied to you. And once you show that he's a liar, the court then has to take that into consideration anytime he presents something. So,
Right.
So,
well, I don't know about can I ask you a question? Because you're asking me the question.
Yes, please do.
Do you know anything about the FBI allegations? Because I was talking to Joshua House from the Institute of Justice in Washington, D.C. when he was trying to get free legal help. And I thought, he's the one, because he helps real estate people. He's helping Jerry Cox. And he said, and I told him the situation, and I didn't use a word of who it was. And he says, are you talking about Mark Adams? I said, how did you know? He said, well, I got a telephone call from the FBI. And I was wondering, how many people are being questioned by the FBI regarding Mark Adams, and why would the county of L.A. and, there's other counties, Orange County, Mariposa County, how would they not be informed of the fact that this guy is shady and still hire him?
From my point of view, I personally have had experience with the FBI and don't trust much of what they put out there that they're doing. Because a lot of times they'll go through the motions to make it look like something's being done, but nothing happens. It just gets put on a shelf again and again. I literally gave them the witness to a case that was going on in Atwater, California, where the police officers were literally taking guns and drugs that were being confiscated in big drug busts and weapons arrests, and they were flying them directly to Mexico and selling.
Wow.
And the information was directly from a witness who was involved with the people involved. He had all the information, took it all to the FBI, and nothing. And to this day, nothing. There was one thing, I should say, that's not true. There was one thing, and that was 2 years later, the district attorney in the area came out with the letter saying there's some discrepancies in the evidence locker at the Atwater Police Department, some, theft of, guns and drugs, but, it's all getting taken care of, and, that was it.
Wow.
And so
do you think perhaps somebody is talking to the FBI and keeping them from investigating?
Well, you got to remember the FBI can only do as much as the political powers will allow them to do. If the political powers that be say they don't want you to investigate something, they're not going to investigate it. And even if they do have something like corruption or whatever on a political person, that political person has friends politically all the way through the system, I'm sure. And then, of course, you get up into the DOJ and the FBI. Personally, I don't trust them. They've shown time and time again that they're just, they'll lie. They've cahooned or colluded, I should say, with, who is that, Whitey Bulger? They've done a lot of shady stuff throughout the years. They'll come out with stuff when it's, something that the political parties, want them to do, but I just don't trust them. Hopefully I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I will eat my words right here, Mary. But I
hope you're not wrong, because, that was our last hope. I thought, there's so many federal complaints here. I mean, it's cruel and unusual punishment. Not just for me, but Jerry Cox and that lady in Orange County and other people, over code violations and having a fence break.
Crazy.
I had people shooting at me, and because people were shooting at me, I lose my house. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, but, and that they would allow this to continue to happen, though, because it's obvious this is happening, right? They can see your case. They can see all the other cases going on. Tons of information has been given to them, yet we're not seeing any action on it. So that's why I'm kind of hesitant.
I tried to get to LA. I'm sorry. I tried to get to the newspaper here, LA Times. Yeah. They hung up on me. I called ABC News. They hung up. They know my voice. I called them so often. The media doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know why.
Well, but let's face it. Now I'm gonna be upfront with you, and you know this too. But I'm gonna be upfront with you. All of them go to the same schools, the same alma maters. They all do the same thing. They all hang with the same folks. Now, there's also levels in that group, that upper echelon, that doesn't talk to us lower level Americans. But they have their stepping group. And
how dare you call me lower level?
Right.
I'm not a lower level person. I have a master's degree. How the hell did this happen to me? I'm not stupid.
Yeah, you have the background and stuff. Somebody like me, I'm just a nobody. I went to film school. Oh boy, but
you still went to school. I'm just saying they're doing this to people that believe in the system enough to get degrees and work and whatever. It's not like you can't steal property from someone who's not a property owner. You don't own property unless you got something in your head.
I agree.
And they're doing it.
You guys got something going, though, here with this case. So you've got some positive movement. You're going to be able to present witnesses and some evidence to prove that he's overcharged this whole situation. In the end,
so.
what are you hoping to achieve from this case in the end?
I would like to pay back Mr. Cohen the $40,000 that I feel I owe him. I wouldn't mind getting a few grand for myself to buy them teeth, because while I was homeless, they stole my purse and my front teeth was stolen with it. Yeah. I can't even afford dentures, so I'd like to get my dentures replaced.
Yeah.
I'm already used to being where I am. I like it. I mean, believe it or not, karma I must have been really, I don't know. I'm okay. I just losing your property, moving on. It's not the end of the world. I'm still alive. I have my health, knock wood, and I haven't lost my will to make things right. And the only thing that I really care about is paying Mr. Cohen back, having a little bit of money left, having money for Rodica Marineskew's son to go to college. So that would be, if we got $100,000 out of it, I would be thrilled. I would be shocked. That's what, 1/5, 20% of the sale price? But I would be thrilled and shocked. I don't want him to get another penny, and I want him to never get another job. I want Mark Adams to be put out of business. Yeah. I want him to be in a cell right next to Mike and construction guy that overcharges, and the guys, the people that are in jail for the pyramid schemes, because he's making billions of dollars on the backs of people who are hardworking, property owners.
Well, with all this corruption, though, it takes the corrupt to have the corrupt help them to move along. So it's not just at that one level of Mark. It takes attorneys and people through the system, the code enforcers, all these other people, to know something's going on. Not necessarily that they're completely involved or complicit in it, or I shouldn't say complicit in it, because they are to some degree by not standing up and doing something about it. They're seeing others being too powerful, and they don't want to do anything. Like, I'm sure you tried to get an attorney, and it was quite difficult.
There's nowhere I can get. This is elder abuse. In my case, and in the lady that's 79 years old, it's elder abuse. Mm-hmm. I'm lucky that I still have my wits about me. My husband had dementia. Mm-hmm. If they did this to him, he would have been dead long ago. But I tried to fight. So it's elder abuse. But one more question I have for you about eminent domain.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what if it was to be, if it's an eyesore or, like whatever, and they paid us to leave with eminent domain, how is this a replacement for that? Is that why they're pushing it? Because the county doesn't have to pay us to leave or pay us anything? Do you think that's what it is?
I didn't quite understand the question. So you're wondering...
No, eminent domain... I'm wondering what the relationship between the paying people for eminent domain, like paying them for their property, whatever it would be, to leave. Like, say they would have given us $300,000 instead of somebody else. The county would own it. They would save all that hassle, and they would have property. They would have actual, instead of Mark Adams making, $500,000 or more, the county would make that money. Why wouldn't they try to do that if they're going to steal property?
It would be I would imagine, I'm not an attorney, so I'm only speaking as a layman, but I believe there would be a discrepancy because the county would look like it is taking direct action against a citizen to take their property and make a profit off of it, which they're not supposed to do. If there's an issue with your property... So they just hire a hitman?
Huh? They just hire a hitman, Mark Adams or somebody else, right? To do it for them.
That's a rough one. Yeah, because with Mark Angelucci and everything, it's like, oh, geez, because so many of us believe that there is a tie there, because there's just
absolutely.
Way too much,
The security man, Laurenti, is from New Jersey, and I'm from Chicago, and I'm just saying, it takes one to know one, and I'm telling you, there's something fishy going on. You shouldn't be paying, $100,000 for security on a property that's worth that was worth as is $300,000.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So somebody besides Dad is involved here. And I would just love to find out what the books are.
There's so much money involved too. That's the other thing, is that no one would want to lose that kind of cash cow, especially when you can charge people $400 to talk to them on the phone. And you're not the only one that's told me that, by the way. Mark Adams has been charging people just outrageous fees for every little thing. Opening a letter, receiving an email, like you said, phone calls. I have a detailed list of his charges, actually, that's been sent to me that we'll be putting up here, too, for people to take a look at after this podcast. But Mary, do you have anything else you want to add before we conclude?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much. Put the sunshine, let the sunshine in, and clean it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Again, thank you so much, Mary, for your valiancy. I mean, you are amazing. You're a fighter, and I hope your husband is looking down upon you and is proud that you've maintained the fight, because it is worth fighting for. So
I just got goosebumps. Do you know who I think is really helping me, believe it or not? Mark Angelucci. I feel I'm channeling him. I feel that his anger, that all this corruption was not thwarted completely. I think that's one of the reasons that people are going to finally get the truth out in the honor of him, because he shouldn't die in I don't think he was, I don't know why he was murdered, but it just stinks. It really stinks.
Yeah, he was a lawyer that had the heart and the cojones to go after these corrupt, bastards. And he knew the law. He knew the law was for the people, and the people needed justice. It didn't matter if you were a guy or a girl or whatever. If it was unjust, he would take it on. He was one of those kind of fighters.
Right.
All right. Thanks again, Mary. We really appreciate you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.